poured over Victoria Island,
morning, Ada.
Lagos, as 24-year-old Ada Okafor hurried through the towering gates of the Balogun mansion. She had worked there for 3 years, quietly cleaning floors, serving meals, and staying out of everyone's way. The staff barely noticed her, and the billionaire's children treated her like furniture. Yet every morning, Chief Richard Balogun greeted her with a warm smile and asked how her widowed mother was doing. Ada never understood why such a powerful man remembered the struggles of a poor maid. She didn't know those small conversations would soon change her entire life forever. Upstairs, the chief suddenly clutched his chest. A loud crash echoed through the mansion. Servants rushed toward the staircase as Chief Richard collapsed onto the polished marble floor. His eldest son, Daniel Balogun, shouted for an ambulance, while his younger sister, Vanessa, secretly slipped the old man's phone into her handbag before anyone noticed. Ada knelt beside the billionaire, holding his trembling hand. With his final strength, Chief Richard looked only at her. His lips barely moved as he whispered, "Trust no one." Moments later, the ambulance arrived, but it was already too late. As doctors covered his body, every member of the family cried, except Daniel, whose eyes quietly searched for the missing phone. Someone had already begun hiding the truth. 3 days later, the Balogun mansion overflowed with politicians, business leaders, and grieving friends dressed in black. After the funeral, the family gathered in Chief Richard's private library for the reading of his will. Ada stood quietly near the door, believing she was there only to serve drinks. Family lawyer Barrister Kunle Adebayo opened a sealed envelope and adjusted his glasses. He calmly announced that every person mentioned in the will would hear something important. Daniel smiled confidently, certain he would inherit the empire. Then the lawyer paused, his face suddenly turning serious as he reached the final page. The next sentence would destroy the Balogun family forever. Barrister Kunle cleared his throat. By the final instruction of Chief Richard Balogun, all residential properties, company shares, bank accounts, investments, and personal assets are hereby transferred to Miss Ada Okafor. The room froze. A glass slipped from Vanessa's hand and shattered across the marble floor. Daniel shot to his feet, shouting that the will had to be fake. Ada stood frozen, convinced she had heard the lawyer incorrectly. She had never even owned a car, yet she had just inherited an empire worth billions of naira. Then Barrister Kunle quietly revealed one more sentence from the will. Chief Richard had expected his family to attack Ada. Chief Richard instructed me to play this only after his will was read. The lights dimmed, and a video filled the screen. The billionaire appeared seated in his study, looking calm but tired. "If you're watching this, I am already gone." His children leaned forward. "My family will accuse Ada of manipulating me. She did not. I chose her because she is the only person in this house who never asked me for money, lied to me, or wished for my death." The room fell silent. Then he spoke the words no one expected. The video ended, but no one spoke. Moments later, Daniel forced a smile and apologized for losing his temper. He even offered Ada a ride home, claiming they should start fresh. Barrister Kunle quietly pulled Ada aside and warned her never to travel alone. Chief Richard believed his enemies would move quickly, he whispered. Ada declined Daniel's offer and left with the lawyer instead. As their car disappeared into Lagos traffic, a black SUV pulled out from across the street and began following them. Inside, 2 armed men received a phone call. Daniel's voice
We are right
was
behind them.
cold
Do not
and
lose
steady.
them.
Don't let her reach home. Ada had no idea she was driving straight into an ambush. The evening traffic crawled across the 3rd Mainland Bridge as Barrister Kunle noticed
We have them in our
same
sights.
black SUV behind them for the 5th time. His expression changed instantly. "Ada, stay down," he shouted. Before she could ask why, the SUV swerved beside them. A masked gunman leaned out of the window and fired. Glass exploded across the car. Kunle slammed the brakes, sending vehicles screeching in every direction. Their sedan spun across the road, barely missing a fuel tanker. Panicked drivers abandoned their cars as gunshots echoed through the bridge. Then, just as suddenly, the attackers disappeared into the traffic. Ada spotted something the gunman accidentally left behind. With shaking hands, Ada picked up the silver keychain. Attached to it was a tiny brass key engraved with the number 17 and the initials RB. Barrister Kunle stared at it in disbelief. "This belonged to Chief Richard," he said quietly. "He never went anywhere without it." Ada frowned. Why would one of the attackers have it? Before Kunle could answer, his phone rang. It was the police. They claimed Daniel had already reported that Ada staged the shooting herself to gain public sympathy. Within hours, television stations across Lagos repeated the same shocking accusation. Ada was no longer just a target. She had become the prime suspect. Before the police could question Ada, Barrister Kunle called in a favor from a senior officer who allowed them a few hours to gather evidence. If Chief Richard left this key, it wasn't by accident, Kunle said. The tiny engraving led them to a private vault inside an old bank in Marina, Lagos. Deep beneath the building, a security officer unlocked a corridor lined with steel lockers. Ada's hands trembled as she inserted the brass key into locker 17. The heavy door clicked open. Inside lay a thick brown envelope, a hard drive, and a handwritten note bearing Chief Richard's signature. The note began with 6 terrifying words. "If I was murdered, read this." Back at Barrister Kunle's office, they connected the hard drive to a computer. A hidden camera recording appeared on the screen. It showed Chief Richard sitting alone in his study just 2 weeks before his death. "If you're watching this," he said, "my children have crossed a line they can never return from." He revealed that millions of naira had been disappearing from his companies for years. Worse still, he had secretly hired investigators who uncovered evidence that someone had begun poisoning his medication. Before he could reveal the culprit's name, the recording suddenly froze and the computer screen went black. Someone had hacked the file remotely. Barrister Kunle refused to believe the recording was lost forever. A young cybersecurity expert, Toby Mensah, examined the damaged hard drive and recovered a hidden backup. The hacker deleted the footage. Barrister Kunle enlarged the blurry footage frame by frame. The mysterious figure slowly came into focus. It was Mama Bose, the mansion's elderly housekeeper, who had served the Balogun family for over 30 years. Everyone believed she had retired immediately after Chief Richard's funeral. Toby enhanced the audio, and a faint conversation became clear. Chief Richard looked directly at Daniel and said, "You can steal my money, but you will never steal my company." Daniel's face darkened with rage. Before leaving the room, he whispered something that made Ada's blood run cold. Ada immediately asked Barrister Kunle where Mama Buse was. The lawyer's face grew pale. She never retired, he said quietly. She disappeared the morning after Chief Richard's funeral. Toby quickly searched through phone records and discovered that Mama Buse's last known location was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Lagos. Without wasting another minute, Ada, Kunle and Toby drove there. The rusty building looked deserted, but inside they found signs of a struggle. Broken furniture, spilled food, and a torn piece of Mama Buse's headscarf lying on the dusty floor. Then they heard a faint cry for help. The sound of the metal door echoed through the warehouse. Ada rushed back and pulled desperately at the handle, but it refused to move. They were trapped. Suddenly, the warehouse lights flickered on, revealing 4 armed men surrounding them from every direction. Their leader stepped forward with a cold smile. "Mr. Daniel said you wouldn't stop looking for answers," he sneered. "Now you'll never leave this place." Before anyone could react, Toby quietly slipped his phone into his pocket and activated a live location alert to the police. The gang leader slowly raised his pistol and aimed it directly at Ada. Darkness swallowed the warehouse. Screams echoed from every corner as the gunmen fired wildly, unable to see their targets. In the confusion, police sirens wailed outside. Floodlights burst through the broken windows, forcing the attackers to flee. Within minutes, armed officers stormed the building and arrested 2 gunmen, while the others escaped. Hidden behind a false wooden wall, the police found Mama Buse. Weak, bruised, but alive. She had been tied up for days. As Ada helped her to safety, Mama Buse grabbed her hand with surprising strength and whispered, "Chief Richard knew this day would come, and he left something only you can find." Before dawn, Mama Buse led Ada, Barrister Kunle and Toby back to the Balogun mansion. The estate was quiet, with only a few security guards on duty. She stopped in Chief Richard's private study and pointed to an old bronze sculpture of an eagle. "Push the left wing," she whispered. A deep rumble shook the room as a hidden stone passage slowly opened beneath the bookshelf. They descended a narrow staircase into a secret underground vault. Inside were shelves of files, gold bars, rare documents, and dozens of hard drives. At the center stood a large steel safe with Ada's name engraved on it. Daniel slowly stepped out of the shadows, applauding with a mocking smile. Behind him stood 3 armed bodyguards, their weapons aimed directly at Ada and the others. "Father always underestimated me," Daniel said. "He thought he could hand everything to a maid and expect me to walk away." He pulled out a remote control and pressed a button. Thick steel doors slammed shut, sealing every exit from the vault. Daniel laughed. This room was built to protect the family fortune. Today, it will become your tomb. Then he demanded the combination to the massive safe bearing Ada's name. Ada took a deep breath and slowly walked toward the steel safe. Daniel's bodyguards tightened their grip on their rifles, convinced they had already won. Remembering the numbers Chief Richard had once asked her never to forget, Ada carefully entered the code. The vault fell silent. With a heavy metallic click, the massive door swung open. Inside were not stacks of cash, but neatly arranged folders, encrypted hard drives, and one final sealed envelope marked "Open in the presence of the police and the court." Daniel lunged forward to grab it, but before he could touch it, a hidden alarm suddenly roared through the vault. Within minutes, armed police officers and investigators surrounded the Balogun mansion. Barrister Kunle handed the sealed envelope to the lead detective, who opened it in front of everyone. Inside were signed financial records, bank transfers, secret investigation reports, and a handwritten confession from one of Daniel's former business partners. The evidence proved that Daniel had stolen billions of naira from his father's companies, bribed employees to destroy records, and arranged the poisoning that led to Chief Richard's death. Realizing there was no escape, Daniel slowly lowered his head as officers stepped forward with handcuffs. The courtroom fell silent 3 months later as Daniel Balogun was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of his father. Financial Ada, if you are reading this, then justice has finally won. Wealth means nothing if it cannot change lives. Build the future I dreamed of. Months later, the Balogun mansion became the Richard Balogun Foundation, providing scholarships, free medical care, and shelter for struggling families across Nigeria. The maid who was once ignored became a woman who gave hope to thousands. Ada looked up at the portrait of Chief Richard and smiled through her tears. You didn't just leave me your fortune, you trusted me with your legacy. And for the first time since his death, the Balogun mansion truly felt like home.